Hello folks, it's a silly moustache here. I'm going to do another video about my Eastman E20 P and my Collings 0002H. This is a very uneven competition, so I'm not going to say one is better and one is worse. First of all, the E20 P is available in the UK at the moment for in the region of £1,500. The Collings, regardless of size, would be in the region of about £5,500. So there's quite a lot of difference there. Of course, they've been sourced differently. The Eastman is made in China, and the Collings is made in the United States. They do have things in common. Both of them are early Martin designs, and they hold very closely to those early Martin designs. And I happen to have my old 1924 Martin, I think it's 1924 Martin catalogue here, which is falling apart but still has some very useful information. And if we look at the Stylo, the E20P is not called a Stylo, but it is to all intents and purposes. It has a body width of 13 5/8. The original Martin was 13 1/2. On the 00, the body width was 15 inches and is on the Collings. But most copies of Martins, clones, whatever you want to call it, are usually within an eighth in and out. So, you know, that's something we must accept. The Style O is a 24.9 scale length. And the 00 was for a long time the only one that had what is now regarded as a standard scale length of 25.4 inches. The Stylo was introduced in 1895, and the 00 was introduced in 1902 and was still in production until recently with Martins. But thankfully we have people like Collings and Eastman and a few other people that are still making the original Martin designs for us. So I'm going to look closely at the detail. First of all, I would like to make a comment about the cases. The 00, which was made in 2003, comes in a standard TKL case, which is perfectly good, and I can see at a glance that the thickness, the number of layers of the wood is somewhat thicker than this case, although the Eastman case is actually a very, very good quality case. I'll be quite happy to take this guitar out in it, and I might even do that tomorrow. So let's have a look at the Collings, and I want to look at the headstock. This is a beautiful piece of carving. The finish is what you would expect from Collings. Those pinpoint, those razor sharp corners, the beautiful precise straight cut slots, beautiful engineering around here which makes the strings move naturally. As you can see, the two outer strings are wound to the outside and the rest are wound to the inside, keeping those strings as straight as possible over the nut. The volute, as it is called incorrectly, but that's what everybody knows, is diamond cut. It's beautiful, as is the join around here. This is a single piece of wood, as is the heel, which is also single peel and also has a slight point on it there. This is a very gentle modified V profile. 1 13/16 nut width. On the Martin it would be 1 7/8, and of course Waverley tuners. So if we move now to the Eastman, the headstock is very similar. It has the same sort of facing on it, but all the corners are a little bit more rounded, as actually you would expect even on a Martin. So we've got round cut slots, which I believe are easier to make than the straight cut ones, a little bit less labour. Pretty good slotting here, so the strings are not actually being held up as they wind on here, so that's just about okay. The tuners are not Waverleys. They look remarkably similar to Waverleys, but they are of Chinese origin, I would expect. 1 13/16 nut again. If we look at the volute, there is the issue of a volute there, and it is also obvious that this is not one piece of wood. There are wings added onto it and glued, but that's okay. It doesn't look faulty or anything like that. The neck is a C profile, and it looks rather strange as far as the grain is concerned, but it's still perfectly acceptable and plays very nicely. The heel is in two parts. There is a join along here, so we're minimizing that piece of wood and we're adding bits and pieces on the extremities, but that doesn't mean that it's a poorer quality. So that's those two aspects. The neck and the headstock work perfectly well. Then we move to the trim. I want to have a close focus, if I can, of the herringbone around here and the binding, which is perfectly acceptable, and the back stripe, which is a very good imitation of a marten back stripe. It all links up very nicely. Some martens don't, but it's like that white, black, white goes along there and follows around the end cap. That's all done very well. Very nice piece of rosewood, by the way, on the back and sides. And this is an Adirondack top with a remarkably high bridge. So if that neck ever moves up, we've got a lot of work we can do there before we need to start thinking about a reset. But this is going to outlast me, I'm sure. So I'm going to put that one down, and now we're going to have a look at the Collings. One piece neck, already mentioned that. The binding, the herringbone is more precise, more like you would expect on an old marten. And of course it is faultless. It doesn't have the black, white, black that the Collings or the marten would have. It has clear binding round here, but still perfectly acceptable. This is a much older guitar, of course, 2003. It's got a bit more of a suntan than the other one. A perfectly acceptable piece of rosewood, and this guitar has been well played, although not performed with a great deal. So the back stripe is much more precise, but that's okay. So what do we look at now? Well, of course, we're looking at the tone. The triple O is 15 inches wide, whereas this style O should be 13.5, and this is 13 5/8. That's going to make a difference. They're both approximately the same depth, but we do have more, literally, cubic capacity or volume in this, and this is a very well played in and seasoned instrument. Now, we would not expect the same amount of bass from a size O as we would a triple O. That is an auditorium design, and this is well, Eastman call it a parlour, but it's actually a concert. So not quite as much bass, but what I do find in this is a rather beautiful pearly sort of sound, I'm detecting a rather nice quality to the trebles. So my buttons are rattling on the back. It didn't need any setting up. I'm looking at the seam here between the neck and the body, and it's not perfect. There's a little bit of glue and extra polishing in there that's gone on. On the other side, much less so. The bleed is fine. The only thing that I would complain about on this is that the string spacing for the pinholes doesn't seem quite in line with the actual string spacing. So there's a bit of an angle between the pinhole and the bridge. But I've had the strings off and put them back on. Doesn't seem to be a great problem. And when you think that this is £1,500 and that one is £5,500, £4,000 difference. Yes, you get better quality with the Collings, of course you do, but there is a surprising difference, isn't it? And if you're wanting a guitar on a budget, this is a very good instrument. I have no complaints with it. Looking inside, I can see that it's been relatively well made, to the level, I would say, of a budget Martin. Whereas on the Collings, of course, it is impeccable in the interior. Every little bits and pieces is absolutely perfectly done. It's a work of art. So there we are. I love my Collings guitars. I find myself reassured when I'm standing on stage. They're reliable, they're consistent, very sensitive to temperature changes. But apart from that, I love them dearly. Clean and well balanced in the way that Martins were up until about the late 20s, early 30s, where they elected, with the coming of the Dreadnought, maybe the OM, but I think the Dreadnought, they elected for a bass heavy sort of sound. These designs kind of predate that. But I would call that pretty well balanced. And as you might find in my email about is it really all about the bass, you don't have to have a great big heavy thumping bass on guitars, especially guitars of this smaller design. So I'm very happy with my Eastman, and I'm of course delighted with my Collings. If there had been an O-size Collings guitar that I could have afforded, or even a Martin that was available, I would have been tempted, but there wasn't, and so I went for the budget one, thinking it's just for noodling at home, and I think it will fit that perfectly well, although I might actually find myself taking it to a little old-timey jam tomorrow and see how it holds out. There's no shortage of volume. You can see my little red light peeking up there. So there we are, that's my little summary. It's not perfection, as you would expect from a Collings. Would you expect perfection in a Martin nowadays? I don't know, that's unfair for me to judge because I haven't got one to compare. But if you have been, thanks for watching, and as always I would really appreciate your comments and your questions. Thanks for watching, bye.